Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee Shop Philosophy. I'll save you the normal intro. It's been a little while since I've been on here. Last few episodes, I mentioned that I was going to try to get back into the swing of things and do all that, but a couple of life restraints stopped me from getting back in the swing, and by the time I was ready to get the episodes rolling again, the podcast network decided to take its regular annual holiday hiatus. So I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. The podcast will continue. For the few of you out there that have been missing the show, I've gotten a few messages from people that listen to the show asking when it's going to come back, and it definitely means a lot knowing that the messages and some of the things I discuss have a bit of resonance with people, and that people are interested in hearing more of some of the ideas and things that I've got to say or got coming up, as it were. I should reintroduce myself for those of you that are new to the show. My name is Killian Hobbs. I'm the managing editor for Being Libertarian LLC. I'm also the host here, Coffee Shop Philosophy. Been a part of Think Liberty, Rational Standard, and of course Being Libertarian for about a year or two now. I've kind of lost track of it with all the stuff that goes on, That all said, I'm going to hop right into today's episode. I'm pretty sure everyone's that does listen has taken, enough of a hiatus from me that they don't need to hear me go through all of these things to kind of jump right back into it here. One of the things I wanted to cover off is the fact that I will be changing the way that I usually do my episodes. So for those of you that are familiar with the older ones, you're probably used to, standard 30-minute block, just me and a guest kind of just going at one topic, delving into it a little bit. And then once the time's up, we kind of just move on from there. I'm going to switch away from that. I'm not the biggest fan of that restraint. One thing I've noticed is that sometimes a topic, it's still a topic I want to discuss, but I don't need to stretch it out into a full 30-minute episode. Other times a topic has so much depth to it that, I could spend a full hour or hour and a half just sitting here going on and on about the topic and all the different details and little sub-concepts that are attached to it. So one of the things that's going to be changing with the show going forward is that we're not going to be having the regular time constraints that I usually have inflicted on myself for these episodes. Just going to try to get rid of that so that we can get you better content rather than just kind of making sure that a time slot's filled. One of the other things that I'm going to be changing is I'm definitely going to try to get more guests on the show. I've definitely received tons of positive feedback over the last year from any of the episodes that I had a guest on, whether it was, Andrew Kern or Vinnie Marshall or TJ Eckert or just any of the people that I've had on the show. I know there's been tons more. I'm not going to list absolutely everybody here, but definitely get a lot of positive feedback from everybody over that. So, I'm going to try to continue that and get people in a bit more of a rotation rather than like a one-off guest sort of thing. Had a couple people repeat so far, which is good, but I want to make that a little bit more consistent because it seems that the people that are listening, you guys kind of enjoy it when it's not just me prattling on for X amount of time. So definitely want to give you guys what I can there. Other thing that I want to go into as well, as far as changes to the show, I'm going to try to be a bit more concise myself. Listening back to some of the old episodes, and I'm sure some of you might have noticed this here, is I do have a tendency to ramble a little bit. I've caught myself doing that. For those of you that read my articles or any of my writings that I do, you'll notice I'm a lot more concise in text than I am in when I'm doing these podcasts here. So that's another thing that I'm going to try to work on throughout the course of the year. And I expect the people that listen, hold that against me. I've said it. It's on record. That's a thing that I'm going for. Other than that, I'm going to try to do the same thing that I've done, which is when I come across a topic of interest or something that I think deserves a bit of insight or a bit more of a deep dive into it, I'm going to try to bring that content to you and give you my insights on it, plus any historical information or just general philosophical information, political information, economic information, et cetera, just any of the facts that I can deliver along with any perspective or insight that I myself might have on the topic. So like I said, we're going to get into everything here. For tonight's episode, since we're kind of getting back to it here, I've talked about this topic before, and I think that it's a good topic to kind of kick things off on, considering what led to my absence in the past roughly month and a half or so, I'd say, maybe 2 months, just kind of gauging the time frame there. Time management. Sounds like a strange topic to start everything off on. I got a great, exciting show for you. We're going to talk about time management. Yeah. But it's honestly something that's very important. Something that I think is very important. Something that in a lot of the talks that I have with people when they're feeling overwhelmed or they're feeling that they can't really get things organized in their lives, that a lot of the time it ties back to that particular issue. Like I also mentioned in the previous episode, I've got different techniques that I used for it. So I use things like the Pomodoro technique, where you actually set specific times with specific breaks scheduled in, and you force yourself to take those small breaks so that you don't work for a long time and then lose all focus down the road. There's tons of things that have been written for and against methods like that. Not the type of time management stuff I'm going to go into. The stuff that I want to cover is for the people that are like me and overbook themselves. And a key aspect in time management is realizing how much time you actually have. Now, I talk about a certain exercise that I do where I actually break down how many hours I've got in the course of a week. Once I eliminate all the, half two times for everything, it leaves me with so much quote unquote free time or loose time that I can use to devote to things like the podcast, to the article writing that I do, to some of the work that I've done on an upcoming documentary, which I'm going to get a guest on a little bit later on to talk about down the road, and other writings and the like that I've worked on as well. I try to find that time by tracking everything, calculating it all out, but a part that I don't really touch on is the fact that reality doesn't like to match the best laid plans. That's something that I'm sure everyone else has experienced, is that, you can sit down and write out a plan and you can put a whole bunch of stuff together and it all just falls apart. The best laid plans of men, as they say. So the time management piece that I want to talk about is how to recover and how to manage your time in a way that's actually conducive to what you're looking to do. So to start off, the first thing that needs to be accounted for in any kind of time management plan is your downtime. I don't mean that you need to schedule how many episodes of a show you're watching each night in order to reel yourself in or anything like that. No. You need to be aware of how you unwind and how your downtime is actually used. Because if you try to schedule every bit of downtime you have, it will not work. You'll reach those breaking points where you find yourself down a YouTube hole for 4 hours, and then all of a sudden you go, oh crap, here's 6 things I signed up for that I didn't actually get done because I just completely lost track of time. Now, it sounds like, oh, well, that person could have organized their time better or could have managed better or whatever else. But in reality, those sorts of situations arise not just because of quote unquote poor time management, but they arise because we don't take the time for ourselves in that. So I'll use myself as an example. I work as a sales manager, for those of you that aren't aware. I've mentioned this before. My quote unquote day job is as a sales manager in a retail environment. So we take care of a whole bunch of different electronics related services and stuff like that. My contract recently expanded. This was been about the beginning of October, where we're actually running 3 brand new sub projects effectively. So part of that took a lot of additional time out of my usual day-to-day routine. Definitely took time out of my time actually when I'm at work, but being a manager, you don't really get a moment's rest when you're off work either, as with fielding phone calls, going through reports, having to set up follow-up meetings, the additional time you stay to be able to make sure renovations are done properly, and then newer staff are trained up properly, et cetera, et cetera. I knew that this was going to be a strain on my time. However, I had convinced myself that I could plan my way out of this and simply continue on with all the other work that I was doing without that really affecting me. I realized that with work, I was working 50, sometimes 60 hours a week in order to get things done, especially going into the busy holiday season there. But I didn't account for my own downtime. That time when you get off work, you sit down, and the last thing you want to do is anything that even remotely resembles work. What you want to do at that point is you just want to sit down, you want to relax, or you might say, I'm going to go get this work done. Let me just check my phone quick. And next thing you know, it's an hour and a half later, and you've been flipping through Facebook, reading a whole bunch of messages, doing all that sort of stuff. Sometimes just catching up on your social media feed in general. And there goes all that time you were about to spend doing all that stuff you wanted to get done. It's, I'm sure I'm not unique in that. However, being a person that talks about how important these types of organization is, how important keeping an eye on how yourself and doing kind of check-ins with yourself to make sure that you're okay with where you are. Letting myself fall to the side like that was a bit of a blow, which then kind of fed into that drain, which meant that I need more of that downtime for myself, and things just kind of snowballed from there. I was able to course correct myself, get everything sorted out. And then, like I mentioned, that's around the time that the podcast network went on its holiday hiatus. So ended up being off the air a little bit longer than intended. But that is a key aspect of any type of planning process. Any type of management process, especially personal management, such as time management, general organization, et cetera, all of it is dependent on honesty. What I mean with that is, let's say you're looking at a budget, right? You're trying to budget things out for yourself, and you tell yourself, "Oh yeah, I can go with only a coffee a day." Well, if you're a person that drinks 4 or 5 cups a day, you're not going with a coffee a day. That's a lie. You just told yourself a lie while you're trying to budget, and you're going to go treat yourself to that extra coffee. Or instead of a coffee, you're going to say, "Oh, I haven't had coffees all day, so I'll grab an energy drink instead." You're still going to end up spending that money, and then you're going to be over your budget, and you're going to say, "Well, what happened?" You need to have that level of honesty with yourself when you're doing any type of planning or any type of organization for yourself. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up to fail. I've done that before. I've done that recently. I've done it in the past. I will probably do it in the future. I am preemptively being hypocritical because I know that's an area that I'm going to fail at again and again and again, despite the fact that I'm preaching how important it is not to fail at that. But that's just part of being a human. You're going to fail at things. It happens. The part that matters is the course correction. You have to try to be honest with yourself, and the more often that you're honest with yourself about, well, how much do I really spend on this stuff? Do I need to spend that money? No, but I know me. I know I'm going to eventually break down and spend that money on it. You can tell yourself, I'm done drinking. I'm never going to go to the bar again. I'm not going to spend a single cent on it anymore. I'm done. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, you get a call to go to see your buddy for his birthday. He's turning the big 3-0 or 4-0 or something like that. And sure enough, you're going to go to the bar and you're going to spend that money, or, maybe it's, maybe you've had a couple stressful weeks with you and the missus or you and the mister, and you decide to treat yourself and go out for dinner and stuff like that. Doing those things are a part of living. You have to do those things. Just the same as weird as it sounds, sometimes you have to just spend an hour scrolling through Facebook and just doing nothing else other than just scrolling through, just laughing at random memes that you come across, or reading the odd article that pops up, or getting into a lengthy debate with some random on the internet about the finer points of the douchebaggery of Marx. Whatever it is that floats your boat. You need to account for those things. You need to realize that that doesn't make you bad at time management. It makes you human. Because without that downtime, without that recovery time, you're not going to actually accomplish the things that you want to accomplish when you're trying to plan things out. Going back into the time management aspect specifically, you need to set aside that little bit of wiggle time. You can't have a perfect 100% 24-hour schedule built for yourself. I do still recommend, plotting out how much potential free time you have when you calculate things like how long does it take for your commute to work, from work, how long are you at work, how long is how long do you spend eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, how long do you spend fulfilling these different, say, repetitive weekly social tasks you might have if you have a softball league you're in, or you take your kids to gymnastics or something like that. Account for those things so that you can see how much time is unaccounted for. And then once you have your unaccounted time, Think of how often you sit around doing absolutely nothing and how much of that time is being lazy and how much of that time is recouping from your day. Previously, I suggested, scheduling everything through and trying to figure it out. Obviously, you're going to have break points. I mentioned it then. I'll mention it again now. I've already mentioned it on this episode. But it's a matter of course correction. Like I said, accounting for the little breaks that you're going to have there and leaving yourself that time for it means that it's easier for you to stay on the path that you're trying to create for yourself. If you've got, you calculate every day of the week and it turns out that you've got 14 spare hours in a week, great. Don't plan to do anything with more than maybe 8 of them. Maybe 10 if you're feeling really proactive that week. Because there's going to be those times that, after you pull up somewhere and you park, you're going to sit in your car for 10, 15 minutes. Or you're going to go, when you get a coffee and sit down somewhere, you're just going to sit and veg for a moment. Or you're going to run into that one random person while you're out on the street. You're going to talk for 20, 30 minutes in the middle of the street, and then that's time lost out of your week as well. You have to account for those things being a part of your life, and they're not things that you can schedule. They're not things that you can, grab a piece of paper, write it down, and say, I'm going to spend this much time doing this particular random task this week. I know I'm going to run into Bob that I haven't seen in 3 years and spend 2 hours talking to him at a coffee shop just because I happen to run into him. There's no way to account for those aspects of life. So you shouldn't beat yourself up over those things, but you should use any times that you find yourself deviating extensively as an opportunity to look and say, okay, why did I end up deviating from this? Oh, I did it because I didn't give myself enough real free time, considering all of these little things that come up and how often they usually do. I lied to myself about how much time I actually have to do these things. Let me course correct. It's those little check-ins with yourself that make a world of difference when it comes to executing any kind of plan. And again, I've used budgeting a bit of as an example there, but we could shift away from that to, general project management. I mean, I've done project management before myself on a couple of different projects there. And again, it's those continuous check-ins with the team, in which case, if you're doing it for yourself, it's a team of one, which means that the feedback should be pretty quick to get. It's those check-ins that tell you how things are going, what's working, what's not, so that you can make those decisions on the fly to correct what isn't, to get you back towards that goal that you want. In the spirit of New Year's resolutions, for example, I actually had someone who listens to the show. She reminded me of something that I had said on a previous episode where, you don't make a New Year's resolution, you make a Monday resolution. Because if you make a Monday resolution, then you got 52 chances a year to fail and try again versus just one. You can even go further than that and make a daily resolution, where you say that you're going to go ahead and follow through with things. And if you didn't get it that day, okay, try again tomorrow. Don't let a couple of failures stop you from continuing towards that goal that you want. Like most of the people that took, say, the gym approach, where everyone's going to the gym and they're all going to get fit and they're all going to get active and everything else. Most of the people aren't going in with the right plan. They're not going in with the right mindset. The people that are doing that right now, most of them will fall off by probably March. Very few of them are going to push through and maintain that motivation and keep going. I can't remember exactly which interview or episode it was. It was quite a while ago now. But it was something that Joe Rogan, of all people, said. Discipline is more important than motivation. I believe it was Joe Rogan that said that. I may be incorrect on that. If anyone knows the actual answer, by all means, let me know so I can actually attribute that quote properly, because I will probably use it multiple times. But the discipline aspect is far more important than the motivation aspect. And the discipline of just being able to say, I'm going to try again tomorrow every single day, or I'm going to try to do it a little bit better tomorrow. That is where you really start to see the success on those things. Now, you all know how much I hate self-help books. That one's been driven into the ground. Don't really need to mention it any further, I hope. But that's one of those messages that rings true in anything, no matter what you try. If you try and you fail and you don't try again, you've just failed. It just stops there and it doesn't go any further. Having the discipline to keep going at something is how you go from being terrible at it to less terrible at it, to okay at it, to good at it, to great at it. There was a picture I posted on my author page, which if you're not following already, you can go check through there. Killian Hobbs Author, just on Facebook there. I also have a Twitter account that I do literally nothing with, but I keep being told to use it more, and I do plan on it. Again, it's one of those things I tell myself I'm going to do, and I keep failing on, but hey, course correction, I got to get on that myself. But going back to it here, on it was just a picture where it shows 1 to the power of 365 equals 1. For the, I'm not going to insult you with the math here, but exponentials to the power just means that it's times itself that many times. Very simple thing for anyone that forgets that aspect of math, which I had a few people that missed it the first few times that I've shared math like that or jokes that were related to math like that. So I'm not going to judge the American education system, but just a short little blip. I'm assuming the people that listen to me understand that stuff. Moving on. Just below it, though, it shows 1.01 to the power of 365 equals 37.7. Mathematically, it should be 37.8, but that's beside the point. And that's the difference between the same level of effort versus consistently improving effort. Just that 0.01, a little bit better every day. That's just next to nothing. If you were taking it from, let's say you have one of those smartwatches or Fitbits or something like that, and you're doing your step counting every day, that would be the same as getting an extra 3 steps in a day. You do 3 extra steps. The next day you do 3 more. The next day you do 3 more than that. And you just build it up from there. Same idea. In this case, with the exponential, it shows, that's all 37,000%. Pretty good jump. Pretty good jump there, going from just a regular baseline where nothing's moving, nothing's changing, to a constant level of improvement. I can't name a single person other than maybe Tony Robbins on Coke that could maintain that kind of motivation for an entire year. Couldn't realistically name another person that I would call sane that can stay that motivated on a topic that consistently day after day after day after day after day. At that point, it's not a matter of motivation, it's a matter of discipline. And that's, again, ties back into everything else I've mentioned so far. But it starts with the time management piece. Out of any of the things I've seen when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to figuring out time for the gym, when it comes to how and when you spend your money, a lot of it ends up boiling down to making sure you have the time to tackle the things you need to tackle. And sometimes that involves releasing some of the things that you might have signed up for. Now, don't worry, I have no intention of backing down from any of the stuff that I do. I'm still going to write articles, I'm still going to do podcasts, still going to do all of the extra Liberty-related projects that I do, run my page, etc., etc. No worries on that front there. I even have a couple other interesting things kicking off this year that I'll definitely keep everyone up to date on as they come. But it all starts with understanding the amount of time that you have for things. If you understand how much free time you have, that can change your budget, because it tells you that, okay, if you have that much downtime, then chances are you're more likely to spend a little bit more going out for a coffee or going out for dinner. Or it tells you that you got a bunch of spare time. You don't need to spend time. You don't need to spend money on junk food. You can make all your food at home because you have the time to make those meals. So you don't have that justification of saying, I don't have the time to cook, I'm just going to go get something quick from McDonald's. It eliminates that aspect of the conversation. Anything that you're trying to take care of at work, if you're getting really stressed out at work, easiest thing to do is just reorganize everything you need to do, break it down by priority, and just start hammering away at things one by one and setting a certain amount of time that you're going to devote each day to each task. If you have like 7 different things that are piled on that all need to be taken care of immediately, devote so much time to each of the tasks each day to get as far as you can with them. And once the time's up, you move on to the next thing. You don't keep stressing about it unless it's something that's of utmost importance, in which case it takes that priority. But then you just have to course correct and adjust the time for your other days in the week to figure out how you're going to tackle the other stuff. That little bit of control over how and when you're doing things, if you can exert that control over yourself, everything else becomes a lot easier to manage. I haven't seen a single, a single action plan of any type, whether it's for, again, fitness, for money, for anything, that doesn't hinge on your ability to actually devote the time to it. And it all hinges on your ability to keep the discipline of maintaining those times, of maintaining the amount of effort that you're putting in there. Again, it includes putting in time for sitting around and doing nothing. Because if you don't have that downtime, motivation's not going to run you the entire year, and disciplines break down if you don't have that recoup time. Even the most avid martial artists do not train for 18 hours a day every single day. They take rest days. They take time for meals. They take time to laugh, joke, go talk to people. Most people who are top-notch martial artists, unless they end up, being a multi-million-dollar MMA fighters or something like that, most of them end up still having day jobs and still having to go out and figure out how they're going to work their training time in with that. They have to make those choices to kind of balance it out, but they still become some of the best in the world, even with limited time compared to, say, someone that's just unemployed at the time and looking for something to do. The mindset with that, but you start with the time management, and then you can build the discipline, and then you can take those lessons and you can apply them to everything else that you're working on. So I'm going to wrap everything up here. I'm not going to go through anything else today. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep the episodes closer to a specific topic. Like I said, I know I ramble on sometimes and go into side options that have nothing to do with what we're talking about. Just sidebar after sidebar, completely unrelated to it. Going forward, that's not the intention of these episodes anymore. I'm going to get back to the content that people like, which is the, direct things that you can action, things you can take away, bits of understanding when it comes to whether it's a pop culture thing, a philosophy thing, or anything else that you can actually do something with. One other thing I'll throw out there as well is a question. And this is something that I want to start doing too, is for those of you that might think that the little outro spiel that I used to say all the time is coming up at the end of the episode, I'm going to scrap that going forward and leave it off with a, not scrap the entirety of it, but for the most part, just leave it off with a question here. After listening to the episode, the one that we have here today, what's the main thing that you think you can do to implement any of this? If you think you're going to implement it at all. If you don't think you're going to implement it at all, let me know why. If you think you are, let me know which part you think really resonated with you. If you're looking to let me know, you can always send me a message either by email at killian.hobbs@beinglibertarian.email. Yes, it's a .email, not a .com. It's a tech thing that they decided. Don't ask me why. Or you can actually message the page, my author page directly. Just search Killian Hobbs Author on Facebook, and then you can send me a message through there. In addition, if you have any suggestions for potential guests for the show, any topics that you'd like me to cover, or specific things you'd like me to dive in on, or give my insights on, or just general feedback, questions, anything like that, do not hesitate to reach out through the page there. You can message me anytime. I may not be at my computer all the time, but 9 times out of 10, cell phones exist, and I've got one on me, so I can usually respond pretty quickly to anybody that tries to reach out to me or connect that way. Otherwise, like I said, wrap everything up here. Thank you again for everyone that has been listening over the past year, and to all the people that might be joining in now or joining in a little bit further down the road, listening to episodes as they come. Otherwise, thank you again. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. As always, I'll see you next time.